West was founded in Egypt and Iraq, and yet somehow we believe it's not in the West. In fact, even Middle Easterners will say it's not in the West. It's part of everybody's understanding of the world now. And this is, of course, at the heart of Orientalism, because the goal is to make it seem that the East is irrational. It's inefficient. It's authoritarian. And the West is democratic and liberated. And everybody's happy. It's all about ice cream. We build it into everything. And usually when we say the West, we think of Athens and Rome and England and maybe even Germany and France, reluctantly Spain. And even though we think of Rome, we're probably a little iffy about Italy, which is another contradiction in this thing, right? The East-West paradigm at some level is nonsensical because it assumes that there isn't connectivity with the other side and cultural sharing. So at some level, there is no Western civilization. That's a construct that's part of our imagination. At another level, there is a Western civilization because there is a geographical region that had a lot more connection with other places than with other places. One way to think of this then would be if you made the Indus River the boundary for Western civilization. Everything to the west of the Indus is Western civilization. But that doesn't mean everything to the east of the Indus is Indus civilization, or is Eastern civilization, because if nothing else, Indian civilization is so different from Korean or Japanese civilization, right? It's preposterous actually to start lumping together. But everything west of the Indus does have strong connectivity, and here's why. It's the Mediterranean. When we think of bodies of water, we usually think of them as dividers. That's because of our bias. The Pacific and the Atlantic are dividers because they're so big. They really do divide the old world from the new world. But the Mediterranean isn't a divider, it's a connector. It has the exact opposite role. It's just small enough of a body of water that getting across it isn't too difficult. It's insulated enough that it does have tempests, which are the Mediterranean cyclones, but they're never as intense as hurricanes. The ancient world, you just didn't sail during the tempest season, which was basically fall and winter. You just stayed out of the seas, and yeah, that way you could avoid it. And so what ends up happening is the Mediterranean connects because it's a highway. It's way easier to move goods and people by boat than it is by land. Land is a pain because you've got to build a road, then you've got to maintain the road, you've got to make wagons, and the wheels are constantly breaking, and you can hardly put anything in a wagon, and then you have all these stupid animals you have to feed, right? And they need water or they'll die, and right? So if you're trying to get from Egypt to Morocco, don't go by land, go by sea. You'll get there really fast, it'll be very efficient, and your life will be relatively easy. So what ends up happening then is all the civilizations near and around the Mediterranean end up intimately connected together. So if we accept that premise, then yeah, there is some regionalism to it, even though at some level it's still a little bit of an artificial device. In other words, I'm admitting that we're maybe doing a little bit of a stretch here, but let's do it anyway for the sake of the exercise. So we've accepted that it was born in Iraq and Egypt, and then we've created a geographical boundary for it. Now we can talk about the elements. So some of the elements of Western civilization tends to be that Western civilization was pagan with pantheons, the Egyptian pantheon, the Roman pantheon, the Greek pantheon, the pantheon that went through the Fertile Crescent. But then there's this other religion, Judaism, which was, by the way, henotheistic originally, not monotheistic. So it wasn't that the Jews said there was only one God. Monotheism says there's only one God. The Jews said there is only one God for us. Y'all have a different God. That's henotheism. It's an important distinction. It's not to say that there isn't some monotheism in Judaism today. I'm talking about ancient Judaism. They were henotheistic. A lot of Jews are still henotheistic today. So in other words, there was this henotheistic religion that then spawned off Christianity and then later on Islam. So two religions came off of this one religion, and that's what we tend to think of as a Western trait, Christianity. Not the other two, not Judaism and Islam so much, but definitely Christianity. Although maybe Judaism is a little bit better accepted today, but not for the bulk of European history, right? European history is pogrom after pogrom after pogrom after pogrom until we get to the pogrom of pogroms, the Holocaust. And then Europeans go, okay, I guess we should stop killing them.